The original Fallout released in 1997, and though it was considered a niche title at the time, its combination of dark humor, post-apocalyptic themes, and moral freedom helped it slowly build a cult following. Many of the game's assets were created under tight deadlines, including the Pip-Boy interface, which originally had fewer animations than planned. The Vault Boy mascot, with his bright smile and thumbs up pose, became the franchise's most enduring icon, designed to resemble old-fashioned instructional cartoon characters from mid-century America. The first Fallout game's world map was actually inspired by a hex-based design typical of tabletop games, where each section represented an area of California and Nevada. It wasn't until Fallout 2 that the map expanded into a more open depiction of the post-nuclear West. Fallout 2, released in 1998, pushed boundaries in ways that even surprised its creators. Its humor, tone, and sheer amount of side quests gave it an enormous replay value. The developers famously hid an appearance by Frank Horrigan, one of the most intimidating final bosses in the series, modeled after government super soldiers who had become monsters through mutation and power armor. Fallout 2 also introduced the concept of Chosen One, connecting to the descendants of the Vault Dweller from the original game. One of the earliest controversies in Fallout's history came from the ability to kill nearly every non-player character, including children, in Fallout 1 and 2. Later versions removed this feature to avoid rating issues, but it's a reminder of how early Fallout valued player freedom above all else. The developers wanted players to feel like they could shape the world, even if that meant destroying it further. In fact, several of the series' endings, especially in Fallout 2, changed dramatically depending on your actions, with multiple outcomes for each settlement and character. When Fallout 3 was released in 2008, it marked a massive shift for the franchise. Bethesda Game Studios had purchased the rights after Interplay's financial struggles, and this was the first time the world of Fallout was shown from a first-person perspective. The Capital Wasteland, built around a destroyed Washington, D.C., introduced players to one of the most haunting settings ever designed by Bethesda. The team used real geographic data from the D.C. area to recreate landmarks, though they scaled distances down to make exploration more accessible. The vault system also grew in scope, with each vault now serving as a contained experiment run by the mysterious Vault-Tec Corporation. For example, Vault 108, home of the clones named Gary, became one of the most famous locations for its eerie repetition of the word Gary by every clone. Fallout 3 also introduced Liam Neeson as the voice of James, the player's father, a casting choice meant to emphasize emotional depth. This marked one of the first times a major Hollywood actor was brought into a Fallout title. The game's radio system, with Galaxy News Radio and its energetic host 3 Dog, became iconic for blending old-world music with apocalyptic storytelling. The soundtrack included classic tunes from the 1940s and 50s, such as I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire, which became a defining song for the series. A small but fascinating detail is that the Vault Boy on the perks menu isn't actually Vault Boy at all. His name was originally Pip-Boy, and the Vault Boy title came from confusion in the early manuals. The developers eventually embraced both names, allowing each to become part of Fallout's visual language. The Pip-Boy device itself, worn on the character's arm, evolved from a static menu to a fully interactive holographic system. In Fallout 4, the Pip-Boy was designed as a physical prop for the Collector's Edition, functioning as a phone case that let fans use it as a second screen companion app. Fallout New Vegas, released in 2010, remains one of the most beloved entries in the series. Developed by Obsidian Entertainment, many of its team members were veterans from the original Fallout games at Interplay. This is why New Vegas feels tonally closer to Fallout 1 and 2, full of branching storylines and complex moral choices. Its design was heavily inspired by Western themes, focusing on the Mojave Desert and the battle between the New California Republic, Caesar's Legion, and Mr. House. Each faction represented a different philosophy about how civilization should rebuild. The Strip itself was built using real Las Vegas geography, complete with a ruined version of the Lucky 38 casino and its ever-watchful Securitron army. The Courier's story in New Vegas began with a bullet to the head, one of the most memorable openings in any Fallout game. The idea of starting from near death and climbing your way through a morally gray world matched Fallout's recurring theme of resilience. The voice of Mr. House, Robert House, was inspired by billionaire recluse Howard Hughes with his obsession over technology and control. Caesar, on the other hand, was modeled after Roman imperialism, showing how ancient ideals could re-emerge in the ashes of modern America. A lesser-known fact about Fallout New Vegas is that its reputation system was completely separate from karma. The developers wanted moral alignment to depend not on universal good or evil, but on how specific factions viewed you. This meant you could be beloved by one group while despised by another, which gave players a sense of consequence that mirrored real politics. The game's hardcore mode added hunger, thirst, and sleep mechanics, a nod to the survival roots of the wasteland. Many fans still consider this feature one of the most immersive experiences in the entire franchise. The series has always been full of references to real history. Nuka-Cola, for instance, was inspired by early 20th century American soda culture, complete with marketing mascots and collectible bottle caps. The lore explains that Nuka-Cola Quantum was developed with a glowing radioactive isotope to make it stand out on shelves, a fictional exaggeration of the atomic optimism of the 1950s. Sunset Sarsaparilla, the Western counterpart drink found in New Vegas, was created to fit the cowboy aesthetic of the Mojave region. Collecting all 52 Sunset Star bottle caps unlocks a hidden reward, one of the earliest nods to the collect them all mentality that Fallout often parodies. In Fallout 4, the series reached a new level of visual and mechanical depth. The game began before the bombs fell, letting players experience the pre-war world for the first time. This opening scene in the suburbs, complete with the door-to-door Vault-Tec salesman, quickly shifts into chaos as nuclear sirens wail and the player's family rushes into Vault 111. The cryogenic freezing of the player character sets up one of the most emotional storylines in the series, the search for a lost son, Sean. The Institute, hidden beneath the ruins of Boston, represents humanity's scientific ambition gone too far. Its pristine white laboratories contrast sharply with the decay above ground. One striking bit of detail is that every terminal in the Institute has unique code strings that reference real programming logic, showing how deeply Bethesda's designers cared about immersion. Fallout 4 also introduced companions with personal storylines, such as Piper Wright, Paladin Danse, Curie, and Nick Valentine. Valentine, a detective synth with a trench coat and glowing yellow eyes, quickly became a fan favorite. His dialogue mixes sarcasm, melancholy, and compassion, representing the emotional heart of the game. Meanwhile, Codsworth, the pre-war Mr. Handy robot, was voiced with over 1,000 recorded player names, allowing it to greet players personally by name. The building system in Fallout 4, where players could create settlements, was inspired by community mods from Fallout 3 and Skyrim. Bethesda incorporated fan creativity into the official design, letting players rebuild towns, set up defenses, and attract settlers. Preston Garvey's now infamous line, "Another settlement needs your help," became one of gaming's most well-known memes. However, his role as a Minutemen leader also connects to early American militia themes, ordinary people trying to restore order in chaos. Fallout 76, launched in 2018, marked the first time the franchise went fully online. Set in West Virginia, it takes place earlier than any other mainline Fallout, only 25 years after the bombs dropped. The idea was to show the world's first steps toward rebuilding, with players acting as pioneers emerging from Vault 76. The game's map was based on real West Virginian geography, featuring locations like the Greenbrier Resort, Camden Park, and the Mothman Museum. One of the game's most famous elements is the adaptation of regional folklore, including creatures like the Mothman, Flatwoods Monster, and Grafton Monster, blending real myths with Fallout's retro-futuristic tone. Though Fallout 76 launched with criticism for bugs and lack of human NPCs, later updates such as Wastelanders and Steel Dawn reintroduced traditional storytelling and dialogue trees. These expansions added rich characters like Duchess, Beckett, and Commander Daguerre, making the game feel closer to the single-player experience fans loved. Bethesda also included a seasonal scoreboard system and community events, turning it into a living world that continues to evolve. Across every entry, the Vault-Tec experiments remain one of Fallout's most chilling pieces of lore. Each vault had a different, often horrifying purpose. Vault 68 contained 100 men and only 2 women. Vault 77 had 1 man and a box of puppets. Vault 106 pumped hallucinogenic gas into its air supply. These twisted experiments were meant to study human behavior under extreme conditions. The irony is that the company marketed these vaults as symbols of safety and progress, while in truth, they were instruments of cruelty and control. Even the timeline of the Great War remains shrouded in mystery. It lasted only 2 hours on October 23, 2077, but its impact defined the next 2 centuries. The bombs were never definitively assigned to any country. The series deliberately leaves the cause ambiguous, emphasizing the futility of nuclear conflict. The world of Fallout isn't just a vision of destruction, it's a mirror to the optimism and fear of mid-century America, where progress and annihilation felt equally possible. One of the more subtle traditions across Fallout titles is the appearance of the number 111. Vault 1, 1-1, Vault 1, 1-2, Vault 1, 1-3 all play small roles or appear in concept art as Easter eggs. Developers often hide these repeating numbers as a quiet signature of continuity. The mysterious Stranger perk, a trench-coated figure who appears randomly in combat to help the player, has been present since the very first Fallout. The sound cue that announces his arrival hasn't changed in over 2 decades. Music has always been Fallout's heartbeat. Every mainline title features licensed songs from the early to mid-20th century, evoking nostalgia and irony amid ruin. The contrast between cheerful tunes like Maybe or Atom Bomb Baby and the bleak world around them is what gives Fallout its haunting charm. In Fallout 3, When players walk near the Washington Monument and hear, "I don't want to set the world on fire," it perfectly captures the melancholy beauty of a world that destroyed itself. Through all its iterations, from the isometric deserts of the classic games to the sprawling 3D ruins of modern ones, Fallout remains a series defined by contrast, hope against hopelessness, order against chaos, humanity against extinction. The smallest details, an abandoned teddy bear placed beside a skeleton, a holotape recording of a lost family, or a broken Nuka-Cola machine humming quietly in the dark, remind players that even in a world scorched by nuclear fire, traces of love and memory endure. Every vault door, every flickering neon sign, and every wandering ghoul tells a story of what was lost and what still clings to life. And somewhere out there, under the cracked sky and endless dust, the spirit of the wasteland continues to hum that same old tune, forever waiting for someone to listen. In the heart of Fallout's design lies an enduring fascination with Americana, the dream of progress wrapped in the fear of collapse. The art style, known as atomic retrofuturism, imagines a world where mid-century optimism never ended. Even as the bombs fell, the creators studied post-war advertisements, magazine illustrations, and propaganda posters to give each Fallout a feeling of cheerful decay. This visual tone was first coined internally as Raygun Gothic, a blend of chrome hope and crumbling concrete. Even the smiling Vault Boy's gestures were drawn directly from training pamphlets used by the United States military in the 1950s. The moral ambiguity of Fallout has always been deliberate. In Fallout 3, the choice to destroy or disarm Megaton was designed to test how comfortable players were with power. The atomic bomb in the center of town was originally meant to be inactive, but developers added the option after one artist jokingly asked, "What if someone paid you to blow it up?" That small thought became one of the most defining moral choices in modern gaming. If you choose to detonate it, Tenpenny Tower receives a new suite. If you spare it, you gain a loyal town that remembers your mercy. Radiation itself is treated almost as a character. From glowing ghouls to mutated flora, the series uses radiation not only as a danger, but as a symbol of persistence. In Fallout 4, the glowing sea was inspired by concept art depicting Boston entirely drowned in green mist, a haunting image that shaped the entire southern map. The ambient hum that plays when a Geiger counter crackles was recorded from real Soviet-era equipment found in a collector's shop. That faint static became the background heartbeat of the wasteland. Fallout New Vegas hides countless references that most players never notice. The Courier's grave at Goodsprings was based on an actual plot in a Nevada desert cemetery that the art team visited during research. The tumbleweeds in the opening sequence aren't random either. Each one is programmed to roll along wind-mapped paths derived from the same physics system used for debris. And the robot Victor, with his cowboy face, was voiced by William Sadler, who also played Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, another tongue-in-cheek nod to mortality. One reason New Vegas feels alive is its obsession with consequences. The developers wrote more than 65,000 lines of dialogue, all recorded with branching variations. If you wear a faction's armor, even your greeting changes. If you attack a specific caravan, radio hosts will mention your cruelty. Every small act ripples outward like dust in the desert. The Yes Man ending, where you take control of New Vegas itself, was a quiet homage to the player freedom of the original Fallout 2, letting you reject every ideology and forge your own. The Brotherhood of Steel, Perhaps the most recognizable faction in Fallout began as a small side reference in the first game. Their symbol gears flanked by wings, and a sword represents technology, might, and purity of purpose. In lore, they descended from remnants of the U.S. Army who fled to the west after the Great War. The bunker at Lost Hills became their fortress, a citadel of steel and secrecy. Over time, their obsession with hoarding technology turned them into both protectors and villains, depending on perspective. Fallout 3 portrayed them as noble knights under Elder Lyons, while Fallout 4 divided them into ideological extremes under Elder Maxon, showing how even unity corrodes under power. Power armor, central to the Brotherhood's identity, has its own lineage. The earliest model, T-44, was the prototype for all future suits. By the time of the Great War, T-51 had become the pinnacle of American military engineering, with microfusion packs capable of running for decades. The frame design in Fallout 4 was inspired by aircraft maintenance rigs, and developers actually built a life-size foam version in the studio to study how lighting hit its edges. In Fallout 76, the experimental T-65 was introduced, designed to look slightly bulkier, symbolizing humanity's attempt to evolve its armor faster than its morality. Even minor creatures carry deep histories. The humble Rodroach began as a joke enemy during early tests of Fallout 1, when developers needed a weak monster for tutorial areas. Its oversized model, paired with squeaky sound effects, became so endearing that it returned in every sequel. The Deathclaw, on the other hand, was modeled from a distorted tiger skeleton in the studio's reference library. Its terrifying roar is actually a mix of camel grunts and elephant bellows, slowed down by half speed. Despite being a symbol of fear, the Deathclaw has occasionally been tamed, most notably by the Enclave, who experimented on them to create obedient soldiers. Speaking of the Enclave, their roots stretch back before the bombs. In Fallout's lore, they are remnants of the pre-war U.S. government, clinging to the belief that they alone represent the true America. Their oil rig base in Fallout 2 was designed as a twisted reflection of luxury, a floating monument to arrogance. The final battle against President Richardson and the Enclave soldiers is one of the earliest moments where players could decide between diplomacy and destruction. Fallout 3 revived the Enclave as an occupying force in the Capital Wasteland, using propaganda broadcasts to recruit survivors. The calm voice of President Eden, played by Malcolm McDowell, hid a chilling truth: he was not human at all, but an artificial intelligence continuing a dead government's dream. The series' attention to detail often borders on obsessive. The currency known as bottle caps was never meant to be canonical. They first appeared as a placeholder texture during early development, but fans loved the idea so much that it became official lore. According to in-universe history, the hub merchants declared Nuka-Cola caps as currency because they were difficult to counterfeit. In Fallout 4, players can even find counterfeit caps hidden in raider dens, an inside joke acknowledging that same economic lore. Another recurring mystery is the hidden alien presence. From the crashed saucer in Fallout 3 to the Zetan abduction DLC, aliens have been part of the series since the earliest design notes. Developers once joked that the aliens represented the ultimate vault experiment humanity tested by outsiders. The alien blaster weapon, found in nearly every game, uses the same sound clip first recorded in 1997, remastered again for Fallout 4. The Mothership Zeta expansion explored this theme further, revealing that humans were abducted before the Great War, implying that extraterrestrial influence may have subtly shaped events on Earth. Fallout's humor is another defining trait. The random encounters in Fallout 2 include a crashed whale, a nod to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the Bridge of Death from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Fallout 3 carried that tradition with the hidden Gary Vault and the tiny wasteland village of Arafu, named after the Romanian town from the Dracula legend. Fallout 4 continues it with the Cabot House questline, where Immortality Serum connects Boston High Society to ancient alien artifacts. Every strange story hides a kernel of sincerity, the idea that survival and absurdity always coexist. The Fallout television adaptation, announced decades after the first game, has also drawn heavily from this tone. Producers pledge to preserve the balance of tragedy and dark humor that defines the games. Though the show takes creative liberties, its inclusion of vault imagery, power armor, and Pip-Boy devices ensures that even casual fans instantly recognize the world. It stands as proof of how Fallout's aesthetic radiation signs, rusted cars, neon diners, has become part of pop culture far beyond gaming. When exploring the ruins of Boston, many players miss how deliberately Bethesda structured its world. The skyline always draws the eye toward the Prydwen, the Brotherhood's airship, symbolizing authority hanging literally above the people. The Mass Fusion Building, Trinity Tower, and Faneuil Hall were chosen specifically to anchor the player's sense of direction, mirroring how real cities use landmarks for orientation. Developers described this as environmental magnetism. Even random clutter like toothbrushes, coffee cups, or pre-war magazines was hand-placed to tell micro-stories of everyday lives interrupted. Fallout 4's Diamond City is built inside the skeleton of Fenway Park, an idea conceived during a late-night brainstorming session. Designers realized that the baseball stadium's shape made it perfect for a fortified town. The bright green walls and scrap metal roofs contrast against the brown wasteland, giving it an almost cheerful resilience. Travis Miles, the nervous radio host, grows in confidence through a side quest, symbolizing that even in ruin, people still find courage. Throughout the series, the developers have maintained a long list of unspoken rules. 1. Every Fallout must include a vault that subverts expectations. 2. Every Fallout must feature a dog companion dating back to Dogmeat in the original game, modeled after the dog from Mad Max 2. And 3. Every Fallout must open with the line, "War. War never changes." That phrase, first voiced by Ron Perlman, has been reused in every main title. It encapsulates the cyclical nature of humanity's self-destruction and the futility of progress without wisdom. Perlman's delivery, calm yet mournful, was recorded in a single take back in 1997, and the same recording has been subtly remastered rather than reread for newer games. The Vault-Tec slogan, "Prepare for the Future," was inspired by the U.S. Civil Defense Campaign, Duck and Cover. The team even studied real-world Fallout shelter guides to craft believable signage and terminology. Every vault door animation is hand-rendered. The rotation speed, sparks, and hydraulic hiss were tuned to feel satisfyingly heavy. The number of bolts varies between games, but the motion always remains the same, a ritual of safety turning into confinement. Even small side characters have left lasting impressions. Moira Brown from Megaton, eternally cheerful despite radiation poisoning, embodies Fallout's mix of optimism and absurdity. Arcade Gannon from New Vegas, hides a complex moral struggle between his Enclave heritage and his humanitarian ideals. Hancock, the ghoul mayor of Goodneighbor in Fallout 4, was designed as a visual inversion of American patriotism, his Revolutionary War coat contrasting with his decayed face. These characters show that the heart of Fallout isn't the bombs or the ruins, but the survivors who find purpose amid dust. Weapon design has also evolved with care. The Fat Man mini nuke launcher, introduced in Fallout 3, was inspired by concept art of soldiers firing atomic shells. Developers built a functioning model using foam and plastic to test its silhouette against the horizon. The sound of the mini nuke detonation was mixed from 10 layered explosions, including one recorded from a quarry blast in Maryland. Fallout 4 expanded this creativity with modular crafting, letting players customize rifles into strange hybrids like sniper shotguns or automatic pistols. Every weapon bench has a unique clatter of tools recorded from a real workshop. Behind the scenes, the dialogue system in Fallout 4 used more than 100,000 recorded lines, making it the largest script Bethesda had ever written. The voice actors for the sole survivor, Brian T. Delaney and Courtney Taylor recorded alternate emotional tones for the same lines, giving subtle variation depending on player choices. This was an experiment in emotional immersion that later influenced Starfield's dialogue system. Perhaps the most comforting element across all Fallout titles is the way they end. No matter how grim the story becomes, each conclusion fades out with narration over quiet music, summarizing what the player's actions meant. That tradition dates back to Fallout 1, whose ending slideshow showed each settlement's fate. It gives a sense of closure in a world built on open wounds. Even in chaos, Fallout always finds room for reflection. As the sun sets over a broken world of rusted highways, scattered vaults, and cracked billboards, there's still beauty in the silence. The wasteland is not merely about survival, it's about rediscovery. Every bottle cap tells a story. Every note left in a bunker speaks of someone who once hoped. And somewhere, on a cracked radio, still playing an old love song, humanity hums softly to itself, because even after the end, hope never quite stops echoing through the fallout. In the wasteland, every ruin tells a story if you stop long enough to listen. Fallout's designers often hide narrative fragments in the smallest places notes, tucked under skeletons, radios looping desperate broadcasts, and terminals filled with final journal entries. These silent voices build the soul of the series. The concept of environmental storytelling became a guiding philosophy at Bethesda. One of the earliest examples came in Fallout 3, where players could discover a skeleton holding a teddy bear beside a hospital bed. No quest, no reward, just a reminder of humanity's final moments. The developers described these details as emotional graffiti, proof that the world was alive long before you arrived. In Fallout 4, that philosophy reached its peak. Dozens of small stories exist within the ruins of Boston. A broken-down robot bartender found in a bar called the Third Rail holds memories of a forgotten friend. A child's room, perfectly intact but buried under dust, contains a holotape of laughter recorded seconds before the bombs fell. The team believed these fragments were as important as any main quest because they anchored the player emotionally. Each one reminded you that the world was once ordinary, filled with people who cooked breakfast, went to work, and dreamed of tomorrow. Even the weather tells stories. Fallout 3 introduced radiation storms that sweep across the capital wasteland. The green haze, flashing lightning, and eerie silence between thunderclaps were inspired by the team's idea of a world breathing. Fallout 4 expanded this idea with rad storms that roll through Commonwealth skies, their colors fading from soft gold to toxic green. Each storm is coded to affect ambient music, lowering the pitch of background tracks so the world feels like it's holding its breath. Fallout's sound design is a world of its own. The gentle hum of a vault door, the distant echo of a Protectron's mechanical voice, or the rhythmic clicking of a Geiger counter, all of it creates a rhythm that defines the player's sense of danger and calm. The vault door sound was recorded by dropping a 10-pound steel chain into a concrete tunnel, then reversing the audio. The result was that deep, metallic screech that fans now associate with safety and confinement. The Geiger counter clicks, on the other hand, were sampled from an authentic Cold War detector and subtly layered over themselves to create tension as radiation builds. Some of Fallout's strangest mysteries come from obscure quests that many players never find. In Fallout New Vegas, there's a quest called There Stands the Grass, set inside Vault 22, a botanical experiment gone wrong. The vault's overgrown halls, filled with spores and whispering vines, were inspired by the book Day of the Triffids. If you listen carefully while exploring, faint human voices echo through the ventilation shafts, recordings of the development team reading distorted phrases like, "We are still here." In Fallout 4, a similar eerie atmosphere returns in Vault 81, where an experiment to secretly infect residents with disease was disguised as a normal shelter. These stories explore how the pursuit of knowledge turned kindness into cruelty. The voice actors of Fallout often become invisible legends. Ron Perlman, who narrates every mainline game, recorded his iconic line, "War. War never changes," in a small sound booth back in 1997. That single recording has been remastered for decades. Eric Todd Dellums, who voiced Three Dog, improvised much of his radio dialogue, including the now famous "You're listening to Galaxy News Radio, bringing you the truth, no matter how bad it hurts." In Fallout 4, Courtney Taylor, the voice of the female sole survivor, recorded more than 13,000 unique lines. She later said in an interview that she would whisper the characters' emotional scenes late at night to preserve their intimacy. These performances, subtle yet human, help ground the absurdity of Fallout's world. Companions in Fallout represent the fragments of humanity that remain. Dogmeat, inspired by the canine companion from Mad Max 2, appears in nearly every game, symbolizing loyalty that survives even the apocalypse. The AI controlling Dogmeat in Fallout 4 was modeled after a real German Shepherd named River, owned by a developer at Bethesda. River's expressions, movements, and even her bark were captured in the studio. When River passed away years later, Bethesda released a tribute, calling her the heart of Fallout 4. Nick Valentine embodies another side of humanity, the struggle for identity. A synthetic detective with the memories of a man long dead, he walks through the Commonwealth, solving crimes while quietly wrestling with his existence. His design blends noir fiction and post-human philosophy, a tribute to characters like Rick Deckard from Blade Runner. When Valentine lights a cigarette, his robotic eyes flicker slightly brighter, a tiny animation detail added purely for realism. Curie, the robotic scientist, represents curiosity turned compassion. Her evolution from a Miss Nanny robot into a human synth mirrors Fallout's recurring question: what truly makes someone alive? Many of Fallout's side quests reflect real-world anxieties. Fallout New Vegas features the quest Beyond the Beef, a dark satire of wealth and exploitation where high society elites secretly engage in cannibalism as a symbol of decadence. Fallout 4's The Silver Shroud quest celebrates radio drama nostalgia, letting the player don a vigilante costume and speak in pulp hero phrases. The quest's exaggerated dialogue was written in a single day, inspired by 1930s serials. The developers later revealed that the Silver Shroud's voice lines were intentionally recorded with slight microphone distortion to mimic the quality of old radio broadcasts. Even Fallout's maps carry symbolic weight. In Fallout 3, the Capital Wasteland is structured in a circular pattern representing civilization trying to rebuild around its shattered core, Washington, D.C. In Fallout New Vegas, the Mojave is divided into zones of control: the New California Republic, Caesar's Legion, and the Independent Strip. Each zone uses lighting and music to set mood. NCR territories have warm sunlight and brass instruments, while Legion lands use harsher tones and crimson skies. Fallout 4's map of the Commonwealth was designed to tell a story of density, small clusters of life surrounded by vast dead zones, showing how isolation defines post-war existence. Behind every city lies a mountain of cut content. Fallout 3 originally planned a faction called the Vultures, mercenaries who scavenged aircraft parts to build flying fortresses. The idea was scrapped due to technical limits. Fallout New Vegas had early designs for Hoover Dam battles that included flooding the entire region, but the engine couldn't handle it. Fallout 4's cut content includes multiple dialogue trees for Synth Rebellion endings and a deleted companion named Clark, a Runaway Institute prototype. Bethesda later confirmed that some cut ideas are quietly recycled into future games, meaning nothing in Fallout is truly lost, just buried. The tone of Fallout is often described as hopeful tragedy. Its writers wanted players to feel that, beneath the rubble, humanity still tried to rebuild. In Fallout 3, the quest Oasis shows this perfectly. Hidden deep in the wasteland, you find Harold, a talking tree that began as a human mutant in Fallout 1. His transformation into a living forest represents both suffering and rebirth. The choice to end or preserve his life remains one of the most poetic moments in the franchise. Fallout's design language uses contrast in every sense: color, sound, and emotion. The bright blues and yellows of vault jumpsuits represent safety, while the rusted reds and browns of the wasteland evoke decay. The music of the 1940s plays against the hum of radiation. The player's laughter often echoes in ruins filled with death. This contrast was intentional from the very beginning. The creators wanted to capture the absurdity of a world that destroyed itself in pursuit of happiness. The smiling Vault Boy, giving a thumbs up next to a mushroom cloud, became the ultimate symbol of irony. There's also a rhythm to how Fallout worlds are structured. The player starts in safety, a vault, a town, or a bunker, then steps into chaos, slowly building a new sense of order. Each Fallout follows this cycle, mirroring Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. The vault isn't just a shelter, it's a metaphor for ignorance. Stepping outside is an awakening. This pattern repeats in every major game, grounding the series in mythic storytelling while letting each new region feel personal. Even the ghouls, often portrayed as monsters, carry tragedy. In lore, ghouls are humans exposed to intense radiation, but somehow kept alive. Over time, their bodies decay, but their minds may remain intact. Fallout's writers often use them to explore prejudice and aging. In Fallout New Vegas, Raul Tejada, a ghoul mechanic, voiced by Danny Trejo, shares stories of regret and endurance, his voice tired yet kind. Fallout 4's Hancock, the ghoul mayor of Goodneighbor, chooses to embrace his condition as freedom from vanity. These characters turn horror into humanity. The mysterious children of Adam represent another philosophical side of Fallout. They see radiation not as death, but as divinity, believing that the atomic blast was humanity's ascension. Fallout 3 introduced them in Megaton, worshipping the dormant bomb at the city's center. Fallout 4 expanded their presence in the glowing sea, where their leader, the High Confessor, speaks in reverent tones about the holy glow. Their faith is unsettling yet sincere, a reflection of how people find meaning even in devastation. Not all Fallout experiments were meant to frighten. Vault 95 in Fallout 4 was an addiction recovery vault, filled with recovering chem users who believed they'd been given a chance at redemption. A hidden stash of drugs was intentionally left by Vault-Tec to test their resolve. Over time, relapse and chaos consumed the vault. This story, discovered only through scattered holotapes, serves as one of Fallout's quietest tragedies. The Nuka World expansion in Fallout 4 brought a lighter tone, yet even its theme park hides darkness. The cheerful mascots, bottle-shaped robots, and roller coasters mask a tale of corporate greed and corruption. Nuka World's park zones, Safari Adventure, Galactic Zone, Kitty Kingdom, were built using real amusement park references from the mid-20th century. The jingle, Nuka-Cola, the taste of the future, was composed using vintage recording equipment to match the distortion of old radio ads. The weapon, known as the Fat Man, a handheld catapult for mini-nukes, was named after the bomb dropped on Nagasaki during World War II. The developers wanted to critique the absurdity of humanity's fascination with power by turning it into a toy for destruction. Even so, it became one of the most iconic items in the series, both horrifying and hilarious in equal measure. Its miniature nukes glow faintly in the dark, using a shader effect meant to evoke childhood fascination with dangerous things. Every Fallout game hides at least one vault that experiments with morality. Vault 11 from Fallout New Vegas forces its residents to sacrifice one person each year, or else everyone dies. The experiment was meant to test how long democracy would endure under fear. When players reach the end, they discover the vault's final message, that those who refused to kill were meant to be freed. But by the time anyone chose mercy, it was already too late. The final recording ends with the words, "We just couldn't stop." That simple line captures the haunting heart of Fallout, a mirror of humanity's inability to learn from itself. Across its decades of history, Fallout has become more than a game. It's a living museum of human contradiction, where tragedy and comedy share the same space. It asks what it means to rebuild after ruin, and whether progress is worth the price of innocence. Every vault door closing is another chapter beginning. Every cracked billboard promising better living underground is another reminder of dreams that didn't survive. Yet somehow, amid the rubble and ruins, the light of civilization still flickers, fragile, stubborn, and impossibly human. Among the most fascinating aspects of Fallout's universe is its relationship with time. Every game captures a different century, yet each feels suspended in the same eternal moment, the aftermath of a war that never truly ends. The bombs fell on October 23rd, 2077, but humanity's clock stopped long before that day. The United States in Fallout's timeline diverged from our own sometime after World War II, when atomic energy became the foundation for every invention, every home appliance, and every dream. This obsession with progress birthed the retrofuturism that defines the series, a world where the 1950s never faded, where smiling robots sold cigarettes and nuclear-powered cars hummed quietly down chrome highways. Vault-Tec, the company behind the vaults, became the embodiment of this contradiction. Outwardly, it promised safety, security, and hope. Its slogans spoke of family and the future, but behind the scenes, it was a machine of cruelty and control. Every vault was designed not to protect, but to test. Some were filled with hallucinogenic gas. Others were built with uneven gender ratios or split social hierarchies. Vault 68 contained 100 men and only 2 women. Vault 69 reversed it. Vault 77 housed a single man and a box of puppets. The developers conceived these ideas not simply for shock, but as commentary on the abuse of science in pursuit of order. Even the company's logo, a gear within a gear, symbolizes containment without escape. One of the most quietly powerful elements in Fallout is its treatment of memory. The world is filled with remnants of the past that refuse to die. Holotapes capture laughter, arguments, last words. Skeletons are frozen mid-motion, forever reaching for doors that never opened. Radios continue to play love songs into the void. This poetic decay gives Fallout its melancholy beauty. The developers called it emotional archaeology, the art of discovering not artifacts, but feelings. When players find a note written by a father apologizing to his child, or a diary entry dated the morning of the bombs, they're not just finding lore, they're finding empathy buried beneath centuries of dust. Fallout 3's world design was built around this principle. The Capital Wasteland isn't random debris. Every ruin has intention. The Washington Monument, shattered but still standing, symbolizes endurance. Rivet City, a floating settlement built from an aircraft carrier, embodies innovation and human stubbornness. Even the simple act of collecting pre-war money, now worthless, serves as a reminder of greed and the illusion of value. The developers made sure that no object, no sound, and no name existed without purpose. Megaton's Church of Adam, for instance, wasn't added for shock. It was meant to represent the idea that faith, no matter how misplaced, always returns after tragedy. The Fallout world often blurs the line between heroism and futility. The lone wanderer, the courier, and the sole survivor are not saviors in the traditional sense. They're survivors, trying to make sense of a broken system. Each protagonist mirrors humanity's resilience, a quiet defiance against decay. Their victories are never clean, and their endings often bittersweet. In Fallout 3, you can save the wasteland's water supply, but the land remains poisoned. In Fallout New Vegas, you can unite or destroy factions, but chaos always returns. In Fallout 4, you can rebuild entire settlements, yet the world never forgets its scars. This cycle of rebuilding and ruin forms the philosophical spine of Fallout, that progress and collapse are inseparable. One of the strangest pieces of trivia about Fallout's development lies in its sound design. The iconic VATS targeting sound, the rhythmic ticking and whoosh, was created by recording a mechanical wristwatch inside a metal drum, then adding slowed-down gun chamber clicks. The resulting blend became one of the series' most satisfying effects. The sound of a super mutant roar was layered from gorilla growls, distorted lion bellows, and a reversed thunderclap. When radiation builds, the Geiger counter's clicks accelerate using a dynamic tempo system tied directly to player health, a feature first introduced in Fallout 3 and still used in Fallout 4 and 76. These invisible systems create the sense that the wasteland itself is alive, watching and reacting. Fallout's mutants embody evolution gone wrong. The first super mutants were created by the Forced Evolutionary Virus, or FEV, in secret military facilities. The idea came from early drafts where developers imagined humanity trying to survive radiation by turning it into strength. In the lore, FEV was designed to create a race of perfect soldiers immune to disease and radiation, but the results were unpredictable. Some mutants retained intelligence, while others became violent brutes. The Master, the villain of Fallout 1, represented the ultimate irony, a mutant who sought to unite humanity by erasing its diversity. His voice was a composite of three actors layered together, producing that eerie, echoing tone that made him unforgettable. One of Fallout's greatest achievements is how it balances horror and humor. Every tragedy is paired with absurdity, a raider listening to cheerful music, a vault experiment gone wrong because of a misplaced memo, a ghoul bartender making jokes about his missing nose. Fallout's writers describe this as laughing at the end of the world. The Pip-Boy cartoons, the Nuka-Cola jingles, even the cheerful vault posters all exist to make the horror more palatable, like a smiling mask over a cracked skull. The tonal contrast is what keeps Fallout from becoming hopeless. It allows players to find comfort in absurdity. Fallout 4's Commonwealth reflects this perfectly. The Minutemen represent old-world patriotism reborn, yet they constantly struggle to stay organized. The Railroad fights for synthetic freedom, echoing civil rights movements, but often questions whether machines can truly feel. The Brotherhood of Steel protects humanity's knowledge, but fears humanity's recklessness. The Institute sees itself as salvation, yet hides beneath the earth like a secret plague. None of them are purely right or wrong, and that moral ambiguity is the heart of Fallout storytelling. The attention to detail extends even to the stars above. The night skies in Fallout 3 and 4 are mapped from real-world constellations, but slightly altered to suggest centuries of orbital drift. In Fallout 76, the developers even added faint meteor streaks that appear randomly once per in-game week. The constellations are one of the few things in Fallout that remain beautiful and unbroken, silently reminding players that while humanity destroys itself, the universe continues without notice. Music remains Fallout's heartbeat. Composers like Inon Zur and Mark Morgan crafted soundscapes that feel like dreams trapped inside ruins. Morgan's original Fallout themes used low, droning synths and echoing percussion to evoke loneliness. Inon Zur, who took over from Fallout 3 onward, leaned into orchestral melancholy, blending strings with ambient hums that mimic radiation static. The song The Wanderer, used in Fallout 4's trailer, perfectly captures the tone, cheerful lyrics about freedom, underscored by the sadness of isolation. Even the classic track, Maybe, played over the end credits of the first two games, feels like a lullaby for a dying world. The Pip-Boy itself, that wrist-mounted lifeline, has evolved alongside the series. In Fallout 1, it was little more than a green-tinted menu. By Fallout 3, it became a fully animated interface, glowing softly on the player's arm. In Fallout 4, it became physical reality, packaged as a wearable replica in the game's collector's edition. The screen glow was calibrated to emit a specific hue of phosphorescent green, identical to the color of old cathode ray monitors. Bethesda's team described it as the color of nostalgia. Even Fallout's humor often hides deep symbolism. The mysterious stranger who appears randomly during combat to deliver a finishing blow, was originally a debug feature used to test VATS animations. Players loved him so much that the developers turned him into a permanent perk. His sudden appearance and jazz sting became one of Fallout's most beloved moments. In Fallout 4, if you take both the Mysterious Stranger and Grim Reaper's Sprint perks, the Stranger can actually trigger infinite combat loops, a quiet joke from the designers about divine intervention in a world without gods. Fallout's obsession with propaganda is another reflection of its world-building depth. Every poster, radio jingle, and billboard comes from a fictional government that used optimism as a weapon. Vault-Tec. Prepare for the future. War bonds keep freedom alive. Nuka-Cola, have a blast. Each slogan captures the same tragic irony, a society that sold its people comfort as the bombs fell. The game's artists often modeled these advertisements after real Cold War posters, right down to the color palette of reds, yellows, and faded blues. Some of Fallout's most beloved myths began as accidents. The mini-nuke jump glitch in Fallout 3, where players could propel themselves into the sky by shooting a nuke at their feet, was discovered during playtesting. Instead of removing it, Bethesda left it in as an unintentional joke about physics in the wasteland. Fallout New Vegas's infamous rocket launch ending for the Bright Brotherhood was created after an artist suggested adding a little hope to a game full of cynicism. Those rockets rising into the sunset became one of the most emotional moments in the series. Fallout 76, though controversial at launch, eventually evolved into a living archive of the franchise's legacy. The introduction of human NPCs in the Wastelanders update brought back the familiar rhythm of dialogue, choice, and consequence. Bethesda began hosting seasonal events like Meat Week and Fastnacht Parade based on real Appalachian folklore. Each one turned the online wasteland into a shared celebration of absurd survival. The Appalachian setting also introduced one of the most detailed musical landscapes in the series, featuring banjos, fiddles, and old American hymns recorded using vintage microphones from the 1940s. The Fallout series has always used humor to balance heartbreak, but sometimes the quietest moments leave the strongest mark. Standing on a ruined bridge at sunset, watching the red glow fade into night, hearing a radio tune crackle through static, these moments capture what Fallout truly is. It's not about combat or power or victory. It's about the stillness that comes after chaos, the fragile beauty of a world trying to remember itself. Over nearly 3 decades, Fallout has grown from a niche isometric game into a vast cultural phenomenon. It has inspired novels, tabletop expansions, fan films, and even a television adaptation. Yet, through every mutation and reimagining, the core message never changes. Humanity endures, even when it shouldn't. The wasteland is harsh, but it's also honest. Beneath the rust, the dust, and the ruins, there's always one more story waiting to be found, and one more song playing quietly through the static. Every Fallout game, in its own quiet way, is a reflection of the era that created it. The first game, released in the late 1990s, carried the spirit of early computer role-playing games, harsh, open-ended, and deeply moral. Fallout 3 emerged during the golden age of open-world exploration, when technology finally allowed vast, ruined cities to stretch endlessly before the player. Fallout New Vegas arrived in a time of reflection, filled with political nuance and cynicism about power. Fallout 4 was about rebuilding, both literally and thematically, born in an age where creation and customization defined gaming culture. Fallout 76 became a study in adaptation, teaching both its creators and its players how to survive together in an unpredictable world. The wasteland, in that sense, grows alongside us. Behind the design of every Fallout world lies an invisible hand of architecture and history. Bethesda's artists studied real American ruins, from rusted factories to abandoned amusement parks, to build authenticity. The rust textures on cars were photographed from derelict vehicles in rural Maryland. The cracked paint on vault doors came from images of Cold War bomb shelters. Even the flickering fluorescent lights in hallways were based on decaying hospital basements recorded by sound engineers. The goal was never just realism, but atmosphere, the beauty of rot, the poetry of dust. One of the most haunting places in Fallout 3 is the Dunwich Building, a ruined office complex filled with supernatural whispers. It is a direct homage to H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Dunwich Horror. The same theme returns in Fallout 4 with Dunwich Borers, a quarry containing eerie carvings and faint chanting. The suggestion that ancient forces lurk beneath Fallout's scientific surface ties the series to cosmic horror, the idea that even in a world shattered by man's arrogance, something older and stranger might still be watching. The Fallout universe stretches far beyond the games. Spin-offs like Fallout Tactics and Fallout Brotherhood of Steel explored side stories, though they're often debated by fans for their canonical weight. Fallout Shelter, the mobile game released in 2015, offered a lighter tone, letting players manage their own vault and its inhabitants. It became one of Bethesda's most successful mobile titles, downloaded by tens of millions within months. Even in this smaller form, the same themes of control, scarcity, and survival reappeared. Players discovered that even as an overseer, maintaining happiness in confinement was harder than it seemed, an echo of Vault-Tec's experiments told through cheerful music and bright colors. The series' sense of humor is built on this very tension between charm and cruelty. Nuka World's mascots smile even as raiders fight beneath their billboards. Vault Boy gives a thumbs up beside a mushroom cloud. Robots like Codsworth cheerfully announce chores while the world burns around them. That humor softens the darkness, but never erases it. It's Fallout's way of saying that laughter is the last human instinct to fade. Even the name Pip-Boy, short for Personal Information Processor, was chosen because it sounded friendly. The developers joked that you'd trust a Pip-Boy more than you'd trust a politician. The moral choice systems that define Fallout have changed dramatically over time. In the first two games, morality was measured by karma, alone good, neutral, or evil, determined by your choices. Fallout 3 kept this system but made it more cinematic, rewarding or punishing players through reactions from NPCs and radio commentary. Fallout New Vegas abandoned karma entirely, replacing it with reputation systems that tracked how different factions viewed you. Fallout 4 experimented with emotional dialogue, where tone mattered more than words. Fallout 76 reintroduced reputation and consequences to its online world, slowly stitching human depth into what was once a desolate multiplayer experiment. These evolving systems mirror how morality itself has changed from clear labels to complex relationships, where right and wrong depend on who's left to tell the story. The world of Fallout is scattered with relics of propaganda relics that blur the line between comfort and control. Posters of smiling families promise safety, television ads sell happiness in glowing colors, Radios play cheerful tunes about bombs and love in the same breath. It's a portrait of denial, a society so desperate to believe in its perfection that it danced into oblivion. The developers often describe this tone as utopia in ruins. They wanted players to feel like archaeologists exploring a museum of failed dreams. Every jingle, every rusted Nuka-Cola machine, every hollow promise carved into metal walls reminds us that progress, without conscience, always collapses. Fallout's lore is filled with small mysteries that continue to fuel fan theories. One of the most famous is the enigmatic Vault Zero from Fallout Tactics, a supposed central hub for Vault-Tec experiments containing the preserved minds of America's pre-war scientists. Another is the question of the true origins of the Enclave, which some believe existed before the bombs as a secret corporate alliance rather than a government remnant. Fans still debate whether the Brotherhood of Steel's technology hoarding truly protects humanity or ensures its stagnation. These debates keep the series alive long after each game ends, as players build their own interpretations of what survival really means. Even Fallout's food tells stories. Fancy Lad's snack cakes, Cram, Instamash, and sugar bombs all represent the culture of convenience that led to collapse. In Fallout 3, you can find sugar bombs rebranded as contraband used to make homemade explosives. In Fallout 4, the irradiated fruits and vegetables that grow around settlements serve as symbols of adaptation, life finding a way even through poison. The Nuka-Cola variants Cherry, Quantum, Victory, and Dark parody how consumerism never dies, only mutates. Each one glows unnaturally, bottled nostalgia for a world that never really existed. Animals in Fallout reflect the same transformation. Two-headed Brahmin, once ordinary cattle, became the backbone of wasteland commerce. Mirelurks evolved from crabs in swamps, their shells tougher than metal. Deathclaws, born from genetic experiments, became apex predators that stalk deserts and cities alike. Yet despite their monstrous forms, these creatures represent balance restored nature, reclaiming the world humanity ruined. Fallout 76's Appalachian wildlife, from snallygasters to scorched beasts, expanded this philosophy into folklore, reminding players that legends and mutations often grow from the same soil. The voice of the wasteland has always been the radio. From Three Dogs' Charisma, to Mr. New Vegas's Velvet Calm, to Diamond City Radio's nervous host, Travis Miles, each station turns static into storytelling. The songs cheerful, haunting, or absurd form the emotional backbone of the series. When I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire plays as you step into sunlight for the first time, it's more than nostalgia. It's a declaration of identity. This is Fallout, a world that sings even as it burns. The use of mid-century music wasn't random. The team deliberately chose songs recorded between 1930 and 1960 to represent an age of naive optimism that could never return. The people of Fallout's world endure in their own strange ways. Ghouls, outcasts, sustained by radiation, became metaphors for prejudice and perseverance. Super mutants embody the horror of forced evolution's strength without purpose. Synths, created by the Institute, raise questions about identity and consciousness. The Enclave mirrors authoritarianism disguised as patriotism, and through it all, the player, whoever they are, becomes a reflection of choice itself. Will you save the wasteland or shape it into something new? Fallout never judges. It simply watches, quietly, as humanity decides again and again what it wants to be. There's a quiet detail few players notice: The clocks in Fallout worlds are almost always stopped at or near 9:47. That time is a symbolic echo of the moment the bombs fell. The developers use it as a hidden signature across games, a frozen reminder that civilization's clock never resumed. In some vaults, however, clocks tick faintly not for realism, but for contrast. The ticking becomes a symbol of hope, a sound that says maybe, somewhere, life is still moving forward. Fallout's artistic direction has inspired countless creators beyond gaming. Its blend of Art Deco design and nuclear ruin appears in movies, comic books, and music videos. The Vault Boy has become one of the most recognizable mascots in gaming history, joining icons like Mario and Master Chief. His smiling face, always unfazed by chaos, represents the absurd optimism that defines humanity's ability to survive anything. Bethesda's artists often joke that Vault Boy never blinks because the future can't scare him. Even the smallest choices in Fallout hold weight because the series never treats the player as just a visitor. You're part of the experiment. Every vault you open, every settlement you rebuild, every side quest you complete, all of it asks one quiet question: what kind of world do you want to leave behind? The answer changes with each player, each decision, and each retelling. That's why Fallout endures. It's a mirror, cracked but still reflecting something true. And when the wasteland grows silent, when the last echo of gunfire fades into wind, the world feels strangely peaceful. The light from broken neon signs flickers like stars. The distant sound of a radio hums through empty streets. Somewhere, a vault door creaks shut for the final time. War never changes, but the people inside its ruins always do. The Fallout universe is vast, but at its heart, it has always been about people, ordinary survivors who try to rebuild in extraordinary times. The wasteland may be full of monsters and machines, but it is the small human moments, kindness, regret, curiosity, that give the series its soul. When players meet a weary trader sharing stories around a campfire, or a wandering ghoul searching for the past, they see echoes of themselves. Fallout has always been a quiet study of human persistence, a reminder that even after everything ends, people still find ways to care, to laugh, and to hope. Each Fallout protagonist begins in isolation. The Vault Dweller, the Chosen One, the Lone Wanderer, the Courier, and the Sole Survivor all emerge from confinement into chaos. This pattern mirrors the myth of rebirth. Every Fallout game begins underground, surrounded by safety and ignorance, and then forces the player to climb toward light. The vault door's slow rotation is both a metaphor and a ritual, safety opening into danger, innocence yielding to experience. When the door seals behind you, there's always a moment of silence, just before the music begins. That pause, lasting only a few seconds, might be the most powerful sound in the entire series, the sound of the world waiting to be rediscovered. Fallout's vaults are perhaps its greatest storytelling device. There are over 100 known vaults across lore, each one telling a different story of control and collapse. Vault 12 failed to seal properly, creating the first ghouls. Vault 11 forced democratic sacrifice. Vault 81 pretended to be safe while secretly testing disease. Vault 111 froze its residents in cryogenic sleep, turning the protagonist's family into victims of science. The developers once described the vaults as short stories in steel. Each one serves as a miniature moral parable, some about hope, others about hubris. Even in the smallest vault logs, where you find someone's final entry scrawled in panic, you can feel the echo of the larger world. The series' consistency owes much to its lore keepers. Every Fallout game, even the spin offs, keeps detailed records of dates, factions, and events. The Great War of 2077, the rise of the new California Republic, the formation of the Brotherhood of Steel, and the countless experiments of Vault-Tec are all mapped carefully so that each new entry fits within the same timeline. When Bethesda acquired the series, it worked closely with former Interplay writers to preserve that continuity. This attention to detail allows the universe to feel alive, not a collection of sequels, but a continuous civilization struggling across centuries. Technology in Fallout walks a strange line between wonder and ruin. The world never developed digital computers or microprocessors. Instead, it perfected vacuum tubes, atomic batteries, and analog machinery. This divergence explains the game's retro-futuristic look: televisions with glowing screens, terminals with green phosphor text, and robots powered by nuclear cores. The Mr. Handy series, those floating housekeeper robots with saw arms and cheerful voices, represent that twisted optimism. Codsworth, the player's pre-war companion in Fallout 4, was given an actual list of over 900 real first names he could pronounce, one of the largest voice datasets ever recorded for a single in-game character. The world's obsession with nuclear power also gave birth to its horrors. The glowing sea in Fallout 4, a storm-ridden crater of melted Earth, stands as a monument to the cost of atomic ambition. The green mist that fills the air there was created using over 50 layers of visual filters to make it shimmer between beautiful and deadly. In Fallout 3, the city of D.C. is dotted with skeletons still holding briefcases and umbrellas frozen in the instant of detonation. The artists deliberately placed them in walking poses, based on photographs from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, to emphasize realism. Fallout isn't just fiction, it's memory shaped into myth. For all its tragedy, Fallout's humor remains its beating heart. The series never forgets to laugh, even in its darkest moments. In Fallout New Vegas, you can discover a refrigerator containing a skeleton wearing a fedora, a playful nod to Indiana Jones. In Fallout 4, a hidden room holds a group of teddy bears posed like a card game, one wearing a fedora and another holding a cigar. Bethesda calls these bear stories, small, wordless jokes placed by developers late at night during level design. Some bears sit behind steering wheels, some play instruments, others rest beside skeletons. They're reminders that even the end of the world can have a sense of humor. Another thread running through Fallout's history is music not just as background, but as narrative. The radio isn't there merely to entertain, it shapes how the player feels about the world. The songs are cheerful yet mournful, nostalgic yet defiant. Maybe By the Ink Spots closes Fallout 1 and 2, suggesting both sadness and possibility. I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire introduces Fallout 3, transforming a love song into an anthem for survival. Fallout 4's soundtrack includes Atom Bomb Baby and The Wanderer, each one reinforcing the irony of humanity's destruction through its own optimism. In Fallout 76, the Appalachian folk tunes add a sense of grounding proof that even as the world collapses, culture continues to echo. Fallout storytelling often lives in its silence. When the player walks through an empty vault, hearing only the buzz of broken lights and the soft hum of machinery, the loneliness becomes part of the narrative. The sound design team uses this minimalism intentionally. Every drip of water, every wind gust, every creaking door adds texture to the world's emptiness. The sense of space and isolation is crucial to Fallout's identity. Even when you encounter a bustling settlement, the quiet wasteland outside always waits beyond its walls, reminding you that civilization is temporary. The monsters of Fallout aren't villains so much as consequences. Deathclaws, mutated from pre-war reptiles, became apex predators. Ghouls, victims of radiation, became walking metaphors for the world's failure to let go. The supermutants, once human soldiers, turned into tragic parodies of the strength they sought. Even the giant insects, bloatflies, radroaches, and stingwings are nature's revenge for mankind's arrogance. The designers never intended them as fantasy creatures, but as reflections of real-world fears, contamination, mutation, and survival of the wrong kind. Every monster in Fallout is an echo of human mistakes made flesh. When players travel through the wasteland, they often stumble upon moments of peace, the kind that feels almost sacred. A rusted playground with a skeleton on a swing, a campfire beside a broken robot that still hums lullabies, a terminal message from a soldier writing to a loved one before the bombs fell. These quiet vignettes are Fallout's heartbeat. The world isn't just about destruction, it's about what remains afterward. The writers have said that the apocalypse was never the ending of Fallout, it was the beginning. Even the names of locations carry hidden meaning. Megaton symbolizes both faith and destruction. Tenpenny Tower, a luxury built on arrogance, reflects class division. Goodneighbor represents rebellion and acceptance. Diamond City stands for hope hidden inside decay. Nuka World mocks consumerism. The glowing sea shows the punishment of ambition. Each place is a moral landscape, designed to make players think about the consequences of humanity's past choices. Fallout's geography is philosophy turned to rubble. Fallout's world is also full of ghosts that aren't supernatural, the ghosts of memory and legacy. The radio voices that continue to speak long after their owners are gone. The pre-war holotapes that record laughter 1 minute and screams the next. Even the Vault-Tec advertisements, endlessly looping, become haunting echoes of a civilization that refused to see its end coming. The designers wanted players to feel haunted, not by monsters, but by the ordinary, by the things that were once normal. The moral ambiguity of Fallout is what makes its stories timeless. There are rarely pure heroes or villains. The Brotherhood of Steel might preserve technology, but at the cost of progress. The Institute might advance science, but through cruelty, the Minutemen might fight for justice, but often lack unity. The Enclave might see itself as the rightful government, yet it destroys what it claims to save. Every faction mirrors some aspect of human nature: pride, fear, control, or faith. In the end, Fallout's greatest question isn't who was right, but whether anyone ever truly learns. Even the recurring phrase, "war never changes," carries more weight than it seems. It isn't just about battle, it's about humanity's inability to break its patterns, our need to rebuild, destroy, and rebuild again. The line's delivery, calm and resigned, turns it into both a warning and a lullaby. The world ends not with a bang, but with the same mistakes made quieter. Fallout's legacy endures because it allows players to find beauty in ruin. The cracked glass, the faded posters, the flickering lights, they all become art. When the sun rises over a destroyed city and the music swells gently in the background, it feels strangely peaceful. That's the paradox of Fallout, a world where despair and serenity live side by side. Every game, every story, every vault entry reinforces one truth: that even in destruction, humanity leaves behind something worth remembering. And when you step onto a quiet ridge, watching the wind move through the dead trees, you realize Fallout isn't really about war or survival. It's about memory, resilience, and the fragile persistence of hope. It's about finding comfort in decay, meaning in silence, and laughter in the dark. In the end, the wasteland isn't just what remains after the end of the world. It's a reflection of us, still reaching for light long after the sun has gone out. The story of Fallout is, in many ways, a story of perspective. From above, the wasteland looks lifeless, just dust, rust, and silence. But when you step closer, you start to see the life hidden within it. A trader leading a Brahmin through the ruins, a robot sweeping the same floor for 2 centuries, a wanderer humming along to an old radio song. Fallout reminds us that even after the worst has happened, life never really stops, it simply adapts. Behind the scenes, Fallout's creators have always built their worlds with that same philosophy. When Bethesda began designing Fallout 3, the team treated every street corner and ruined building as if it had a history. They created backstories for neighborhoods that players might never visit who lived there, what their lives were like before the bombs, and what they left behind. Even the smallest prop, like a broken toy car or a pair of glasses on a desk, was placed with intention. The artists called this approach ghost design because every object was meant to feel like it once belonged to someone. The original Fallout games by Interplay had far fewer technical tools, but carried the same emotional spirit. Their worlds were built from text and imagination rather than graphics, yet every line of dialogue hinted at depth. The first Fallout allowed players to talk their way out of final boss fights, a revolutionary idea at the time. You could reason with the Master, convincing him that his dream of unity was doomed. That choice, quiet and human, became one of the defining traits of the series. Fallout is not about victory through strength, it's about victory through understanding. The evolution of Fallout's design mirrors humanity's own struggle to adapt. In the early games, resources were scarce, maps were harsh, and death came easily. Fallout 3 brought vast freedom, letting players explore a massive world filled with danger and discovery. Fallout New Vegas offered moral complexity and politics. Fallout 4 gave players the ability to rebuild. And Fallout 76 turned isolation into community, teaching players to rely on one another in an unpredictable world. The series grows like the wasteland itself, scarred but persistent. Throughout every entry, technology remains both savior and curse. The Pip-Boy, the player's constant companion, is the perfect example. It is a relic of pre-war luxury that becomes a lifeline after disaster. It glows with warm green light in the dark, steady and reassuring, like the heartbeat of civilization that refuses to die. The Vault-Tec terminals, filled with faded text and endless logs, stand as monuments to bureaucracy. Even when the world ends, someone, somewhere, is still writing reports. This blend of humanity and machinery gives Fallout its distinct texture, a future that never learned how to stop looking backward. Fallout's writers often describe their work as apocalyptic optimism. It's the belief that even if humanity destroys itself, its spirit endures. That's why there are always flowers pushing through cracked pavement, radios still playing music, and survivors still telling jokes. The end of the world, in Fallout, isn't the end of meaning, it's the beginning of rediscovery. The player isn't just surviving, they're remembering what it means to live. Many of Fallout's most beloved characters embody this theme. In Fallout 3, Fox, a philosophical super mutant, speaks about freedom and purpose. In Fallout New Vegas, Arcade Gannon wrestles with his Enclave past while fighting for compassion. In Fallout 4, Nick Valentine, a detective trapped between humanity and machine, searches for identity in a world that questions the very concept of a soul. And in Fallout 76, characters like Duchess and Beckett show that even in multiplayer chaos, quiet stories still matter. Each of these figures reflects a truth that Fallout has whispered since its beginning: the world may burn, but conscience survives. The Fallout timeline is surprisingly long. The pre-war era, stretching through the 21st and 22nd centuries, saw the collapse of nations over oil and resources. The Great War lasted only 2 hours, but it destroyed everything. 2 centuries later, in 2277, Fallout 3 begins. Fallout New Vegas follows 4 years later, in 2281. Fallout 4 takes place a decade after that, and Fallout 76, set much earlier in 2102, shows the fragile dawn of civilization. Each entry fills in a different chapter of the same story, a mosaic of loss, recovery, and fragile hope. The Vault-Tec experiments that define Fallout's mythos were written as cautionary tales about human arrogance. Some vaults studied social behavior under stress, others tested isolation, propaganda, or obedience. Vault 79 in Fallout 76 served as a gold reserve. Vault 95 tested addiction recovery and relapse. Vault 77 contained a man with only a box of puppets, creating one of the darkest pieces of lore ever written, a silent study of madness. The writers built these vaults to mirror real-world psychological experiments, exploring how people react when stripped of freedom. The true horror of Fallout isn't radiation or monsters. It's human curiosity without compassion. The Brotherhood of Steel remains one of the most enduring symbols of Fallout. Founded by Captain Roger Maxson, a U.S. Army officer horrified by unethical experiments, the Brotherhood began as a rebellion against government corruption. Over time, their mission twisted. What began as preservation became obsession. Their knights wear power armor like sacred relics, their scribes guard ancient data, and their elders preach purity of technology. In Fallout 3, they serve as protectors. In New Vegas, as isolationists. In Fallout 4, as conquerors. Through every iteration, they represent the duality of humanity: noble intention, corrupted by fear. Music has always been Fallout's emotional anchor, but its silence is just as powerful. In the absence of sound, the wasteland hums, wind moves through broken buildings, distant creatures call in the dark. The player's footsteps echo through hollow vaults. The sound design team intentionally leaves moments without music, allowing emptiness to breathe. When sound returns a soft piano note, a lonely guitar, it feels earned. Composer Enon Zur once described his goal as creating hope in the dark. He said Fallout's music should never sound like despair, only remembrance. The visual identity of Fallout is built on contrast. The world is bleak, yet the colors of vault suits, signs, and advertisements remain vibrant. The artists use saturated blues and yellows against muted grays and browns to create emotional contrast, optimism, surviving amid decay. In Fallout 4, this palette was refined further, making the wasteland feel both ruined and strangely beautiful. At sunrise, the light glows warm and golden. At night, neon signs cast nostalgic reflections on puddles. Every frame looks like a photograph of a dream that refuses to die. Fallout's humor, often subtle, carries truth beneath its absurdity. The wild wasteland trait in Fallout New Vegas adds encounters so bizarre they border on surreal aliens, cowboys and mysterious skeletons in refrigerators. It's a reminder that the wasteland doesn't have to make sense. In Fallout 4, the Grognak the Barbarian comic series pokes fun at pulp adventure stories while celebrating them. Fallout's ability to shift from tragedy to comedy without breaking immersion is part of its magic. The world is funny because it's broken, and broken things sometimes are easier to love. One small yet remarkable detail across all Fallout games is the way the player leaves footprints in certain areas: dust trails, puddle ripples, ash shifting beneath their boots. These micro details aren't necessary, but they matter. They remind you that you are part of this world, leaving traces even as you wander through its ruins. Fallout is never just about observing the apocalypse, it's about inhabiting it. The radio personalities of Fallout serve as the wasteland's conscience. Three Dog, with his charm and wit, represents optimism. Mr. New Vegas, voiced by Wayne Newton, embodies calm wisdom and nostalgia. Travis Miles grows from anxious boy to confident broadcaster. Each voice connects the player to the unseen population of the wasteland people struggling, celebrating, and surviving beyond the horizon. When a song fades into static, it feels like someone turning off a light in another room. Fallout's writers often say that every story begins with something broken. Whether it's a shattered nation, a damaged vault, or a lost person, the journey always moves toward repair. But the beauty of Fallout lies in the fact that repair never means perfection. Settlements remain messy, machines still creak, people still argue, yet the effort itself becomes meaning. The wasteland's beauty isn't in its restoration, it's in the act of rebuilding. The ending slides of Fallout 1 and 2 set a tradition that continues to this day, showing how your choices ripple across the world. Each decision leaves a mark, from the fate of small towns to the lives of companions. These endings make the player feel responsible, not powerful. When the narrator's voice returns, speaking softly over fading images, it feels less like an ending and more like a memory. Fallout never truly ends, it just fades, like a song slowly swallowed by static. At its core, Fallout is a meditation on humanity's relationship with time. The bombs froze the world, but people still measure their lives in days and years. Clocks still tick, calendars still hang, and survivors still celebrate holidays no one remembers. Time continues, even when history doesn't. The wasteland is filled with reminders of what once was: monuments, museums, and skeletons still holding hands. These details make Fallout not a story of apocalypse, but of persistence. And in the quiet hours of wandering, when you pass through empty streets and glowing ruins, something happens. The wasteland no longer feels like an end. It feels like a beginning, a blank page, written in ash and sunlight. The echoes of laughter, the songs on the radio, the hum of old machines, they're not memories anymore. They're proof that even after destruction, life continues to hum its strange, beautiful tune. Every Fallout world begins with silence. Before the radio songs, before the gunfire, there's always that quiet moment when the vault door opens and the world exhales. You step into sunlight for the first time, the screen washes in brightness, and for just a second, there's peace. That moment has existed in every main Fallout game, in one form or another: the step from darkness into light, from safety into uncertainty. It's the series' oldest ritual, a symbolic birth into chaos. The developers say they designed these openings deliberately, not for shock, but for stillness. Fallout, after all, isn't about endings, it's about what happens after. From the very beginning, Fallout has balanced science fiction with philosophy. The Great War wasn't simply a nuclear conflict, it was the inevitable consequence of humanity's need to control everything. Vault-Tec promised protection, but delivered experiments. The government sought peace through weapons. The corporations sold happiness in bottles. Each piece of Fallout's world is a mirror, showing how ambition and fear walk side by side. Even the phrase post-apocalypse feels inaccurate for Fallout. The apocalypse never ended, it just became the new normal. The design team behind the original Fallout used this idea as their foundation. They didn't want to create a fantasy of survival. They wanted to explore what people would actually do when forced to live with the consequences of their world. That's why Fallout's morality system is rarely clear-cut. You can be kind and still cause pain. You can be cruel and still save lives. Every decision is tangled. The writers describe this as the morality of ash, where nothing is black or white, only shades of gray, all covered in the same dust. Fallout's attention to realism extends to its smallest technical details. The Pip-Boy's green glow was modeled on vintage oscilloscope screens. The flicker rate of its text matches that of 1950s CRT monitors. Even the hum of terminals was recorded from real vacuum tube computers still running in museums. When you open a door in Fallout 3 and hear the groan of metal hinges, that sound isn't artificial. It's the recording of an abandoned shelter door in Pennsylvania. Every hum, crackle, and echo is part of Fallout's language of decay. There's a subtle rhythm in how Fallout's world breathes. In towns and settlements, ambient sounds shift, faint music plays in the background, distant conversations murmur, and radios hum softly. But the moment you step into the wilderness, all that fades. The world grows quiet, replaced by wind and distant animal calls. The balance between noise and silence was carefully designed to guide emotion. The silence isn't emptiness, it's contemplation. It reminds you that solitude is its own kind of storytelling. One of Fallout's most underrated strengths is how it uses humor to reveal truth. In Fallout 3, you can find a hidden vault where clones named Gary endlessly repeat their own name, an absurd yet eerie reflection of conformity. In Fallout 4, a robot named Codsworth continues to perform household chores centuries after his family's death. His cheerfulness, absurd in context, becomes heartbreaking when he asks where everyone went. Even the Nuka-Cola marketing jingles, so cheerful in their repetition, sound like ghostly echoes when played in an empty ruin. Fallout's comedy is never just for laughter, it's a mask for sadness. Some of the series' most fascinating locations were inspired by real places. Rivet City, the aircraft carrier turned settlement in Fallout 3, was modeled after the USS Intrepid Museum in New York. The Strip in Fallout New Vegas took cues from mid-century Las Vegas postcards. Fallout 4's Diamond City captures the feel of Fenway Park's real geometry, down to the green paint and light fixtures. The glowing sea, with its irradiated storms, was inspired by the volcanic wastelands of Iceland and the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Even Fallout 76's map of West Virginia is geographically accurate, based on topographical scans of real mountains, towns, and forests. Fallout's writers have always viewed the wasteland as a living character. It doesn't just exist for the player, it has moods, patterns, and a memory of its own. In Fallout 3, radiation storms appear more frequently the longer you play, symbolizing how the land reacts to your presence. In Fallout 4, wild weather shifts are tied to unseen radiation pulses in the background code, giving the world a rhythm like breathing. Fallout 76 extends this concept through seasonal changes, holiday decorations, and temporary events, making the wasteland feel like it keeps time even without calendars. The people who inhabit Fallout's world carry the series' soul. There are farmers rebuilding with scrap metal, scavengers hunting for parts, and wanderers who never stop moving. There are cults worshipping radiation, children raised by robots, and traders who still believe in the idea of a new America. Every story, from the smallest side quest to the largest faction war, circles the same theme. Survival isn't about strength, it's about purpose. Fallout asks not how humanity survived, but why. That question echoes through the most famous quotes of the series. War. War never changes. The wasteland doesn't care who you are. The world didn't end, it just ran out of people to keep it going. These lines, often delivered in quiet moments, form the moral spine of Fallout. They remind players that the apocalypse is not punishment, it's reflection. The world we see in Fallout isn't what happens when everything explodes. It's what happens when people stop listening to each other until it's too late. The developers often describe Fallout's tone as tragic familiarity. It feels strange, yet recognizable. The diners, motels, schools, and gas stations all belong to an America that once was, or maybe never truly existed. The art team called it Yesterday's Tomorrow. The architecture combines optimism and decay, bright signs on crumbling walls, curved glass windows shattered but still glinting in sunlight. The goal wasn't just to create ruins, but nostalgia fossilized into scenery. Every environment is a memory of comfort turned inside out. Even the enemies of Fallout carry personality. Super mutants bicker and joke during combat, remembering fragments of their lost humanity. Raiders scrawl graffiti that mocks the world around them. Smile, you're already dead. Or, we live because you didn't. Ghouls mutter to themselves as they wander ruins, their voices trembling with fragments of the past. Fallout's enemies aren't just obstacles. They're reminders that everyone in this world was once something else. Fallout's companion system evolved from simple allies into deep emotional connections. In Fallout 3, companions like Dogmeat or Sharon offered support and loyalty, but little dialogue. In Fallout New Vegas, characters like Boone, Veronica, and Raoul had full personal quests that revealed regret, humor, and hope. Fallout 4 expanded this further. Companions react to your actions, approve or disapprove of choices, and share their own philosophies. Piper believes in truth, Danse clings to honor, Kate struggles with addiction, and Curie longs to be human. Their stories, small and intimate, often linger long after the main quest ends. Fallout's true victories are not the ones marked on maps, but the ones found in conversation. Among all the details hidden across Fallout's decades of storytelling, few are as symbolic as the bottle cap. What began as a joke currency became the perfect metaphor for humanity's need to assign value to meaningless things. A shiny piece of metal, worthless before the war, becomes the foundation of economy after it. Fallout's bottle caps prove that civilization never changes, it only redefines what it worships. The creatures that roam the wasteland also tell quiet stories. Radstags limp with extra legs, their silhouettes haunting against the horizon. Bloatflies buzz around irradiated ponds, their hum unsettlingly calm. The Mirelurk Queen, massive and ancient, is both terrifying and strangely majestic, a relic of evolution reclaiming dominance. In Fallout 76, creatures like the Wendigo and Grafton Monster blend regional folklore with nuclear horror, turning local legends into post-apocalyptic myths. Every monster feels born from the soil itself, a living reminder that nature outlasts us all. Fallout's art direction has always leaned on contrast. The developers layer beauty over horror, humor over sadness, hope over despair. When you walk through a battlefield littered with flowers, or enter a vault with cheerful murals over corpses, you feel that tension between what was promised and what became. The smiling Vault Boy posters are not there for decoration. They're there to remind you of how optimism was weaponized. The wasteland isn't just broken, it's ironic. One reason Fallout endures is because it understands loneliness better than any other series. The empty spaces, the static on the radio, the faint echoes of old songs, all of it creates a feeling that's both sad and peaceful. Fallout doesn't try to fill the silence, it invites you to sit in it. The wasteland's quiet is never cruel, it's gentle, reflective, and strangely comforting. It reminds you that solitude doesn't mean absence, it means space to think. And so, as you wander the remains of America, from the Capitol's cracked monuments to the glowing ruins of Boston, from the Mojave's red canyons to the forests of Appalachia, Fallout's true meaning becomes clear. It's not a story about the end of the world. It's a story about everything that refuses to end. The laughter that echoes in ruins, the light still shining through broken glass, the people who keep walking even when there's nowhere left to go. Fallout, at its core, is about the persistence of stories, because as long as someone remembers, the world never truly disappears. The wasteland, for all its emptiness, is full of echoes. Every Fallout game captures this idea in its own way, the sense that something once vibrant is still whispering through the ruins. When you walk through the shells of homes, the cracked highways, or the remnants of playgrounds, you can almost hear the hum of the old world beneath the wind. The Fallout universe isn't about silence, it's about resonance. The laughter, the music, the machinery, they linger long after the people are gone. One of the series' quietest strengths is how it lets players discover its world at their own pace. There's no rush in Fallout. You can spend hours wandering through the ruins without firing a single shot. You can pause and listen to a record spinning on a forgotten turntable, or read through terminal entries that no one else will ever see. The developers always said that Fallout should feel like a museum without guides. Every corner holds a secret, but none of them shout for attention. You find meaning not through the noise of the world, but through its stillness. The technology of Fallout reflects the same paradox. It's advanced yet outdated, full of chrome edges and flickering lights. Robots serve coffee, yet computers use green text and clunky keyboards. This style, called Atompunk, combines 1950s optimism with nuclear paranoia. The artists built this world to feel both familiar and alien, a future stuck in the past. The Pip-Boy, for instance, was designed to look like a consumer gadget from an era that never existed, bulky, friendly, and quietly sinister. Its knobs and buttons don't just manage stats. They connect you to a time that believed technology could solve anything. In the early stages of Fallout's design, developers created an internal philosophy they called the Rule of Decay. It meant that everything in the world, no matter how intact, had to show some sign of wear. Every building has a collapsed wall, every car is half buried in dust, every robot has a scratch on its paint. This consistency gave the wasteland its authenticity. Even luxury vaults, built to withstand the end of the world, contain rust stains and flickering lights. Fallout's realism doesn't come from perfection, it comes from ruin. The series has always explored the tension between survival and morality. In Fallout 3, the choice to save or destroy Megaton defines the tone of the entire story. In Fallout New Vegas, the decision between the NCR, Caesar's Legion, or Mr. House shapes the fate of the Mojave. In Fallout 4, you must decide whether humanity's future lies with freedom, control, or technological evolution. These decisions are not simply quests, they are reflections of belief. Fallout's moral system asks one question over and over: how much of the past should we preserve, and how much should we let die? Power armor remains one of Fallout's most recognizable symbols. In lore, it began as a military experiment to protect soldiers from radiation and heavy weaponry. The earliest models, the T-40 and T-41, were heavy and cumbersome, but they gave soldiers near invincibility. Later suits, like the T-51 and T-60, became refined marvels of engineering. Each iteration, however, carries the same philosophical weight armor built to save humanity from itself. In Fallout 4, stepping into power armor feels ritualistic. The hydraulic hiss, the locking clamps, the low thrum of the fusion core, all reminders that progress always comes with a cost. The Brotherhood of Steel's connection to power armor turned it into a religion. In the Brotherhood's view, knowledge is sacred, and technology is both divine and dangerous. They see themselves as the stewards of civilization's last light, even as they isolate themselves from those they claim to protect. Their logo, a sword surrounded by wings and gears, embodies that contradiction: war, progress, and purity intertwined. Whether the Brotherhood is noble or tyrannical depends entirely on who's telling the story. That moral uncertainty is what makes Fallout's factions so compelling. Fallout's use of language also reveals how deeply it reflects human behavior. Before the bombs, people spoke with corporate cheer slogans, jingles, and rehearsed optimism. After the war, survivors speak in fragments, slang, and exhaustion. Words like rad, vaulty, and muty replace the vocabulary of the old world. The writers deliberately shifted tone between pre-war and post-war dialogue to emphasize the loss of culture. Civilization didn't just lose its buildings, it lost its words. The series' fascination with Americana gives it a timeless quality. Billboards still advertise products no one can buy. Statues of politicians crumble beside raider camps. Old records continue to play patriotic songs for a nation that no longer exists. Fallout's America isn't the real one. It's a dream of what people once thought America was. The developers describe it as the nostalgia that destroyed the future. The imagery of smiling families, white picket fences, and cheerful neighbors exists only as propaganda, now ghosts of comfort painted over desolation. The presence of the Enclave deepens this irony. They claim to be the rightful continuation of the United States, yet they embody the very corruption that ended it. Their power armor gleams, their technology surpasses all others, but their ideology is hollow. The Enclave represents the danger of trying to recreate a world that should never return. Their sleek bases and radio speeches echo like the dying breath of empire, impressive, powerful, and doomed. Fallout constantly reminds players that nostalgia can be more dangerous than radiation. The emotional power of Fallout often comes from small, personal moments hidden between the epic battles and sweeping landscapes. In Fallout 3, you can discover the story of a man who spent decades trying to find clean water for his daughter. In Fallout 4, you might find a child's toy sitting beside a skeleton in a pre-war home. In Fallout New Vegas, a soldier's letter to his mother, never sent, lies in an abandoned mailbox. These quiet discoveries matter more than grand plot lines. They remind players that history is made not by heroes, but by ordinary people caught in extraordinary times. Every Fallout soundtrack carries this same emotional duality, optimism set against despair. The Inkspot's songs feel like lullabies for ghosts. Maybe you'll think of me when you are all alone, they sing, and in the empty streets of the wasteland, it feels like they're singing to you. The juxtaposition of cheerful melodies with broken scenery creates Fallout's unmistakable melancholy. Composer Enon Zur continues that mood in his orchestral pieces, using low strings, soft horns, and ambient drones to blend comfort with sorrow. Fallout's music doesn't mourn the past, it honors it. Even Fallout's smallest myths hold meaning. The mysterious stranger, appearing at random to save players in combat, is an inside joke about luck and coincidence. The alien blaster, hidden in nearly every game, hints at forces beyond human understanding. The presence of the number 111 across games serves as a secret signature from the developers, a reminder that even chaos has patterns. These recurring details create continuity, not through explanation, but through familiarity, the sense that some things in the wasteland never fade. Fallout's writers often say that the series is less about apocalypse and more about humanity's inability to imagine life without progress. In this world, even after nuclear fire, people still sell, trade, and build. Raiders form economies, scientists continue experiments, and settlers argue over politics. Civilization never disappears, it just mutates. Fallout isn't about surviving the end of the world, it's about repeating it, learning from it, and sometimes forgetting again. The world's enduring charm lies in its contradictions. It's bleak yet beautiful, hopeless yet warm, dark yet full of laughter. It's a place where you can spend the night under glowing skies and wake to the sound of birds that shouldn't exist. The wasteland is terrifying, but it's also free. In a strange way, Fallout's world feels more alive than our own precisely because it has nothing left to lose. Through its decades of storytelling, Fallout has built a mythology out of irony, a future shaped by the past, a civilization destroyed by its dreams, and a humanity that refuses to stop hoping even when it knows better. The bombs may have ended the world, but not the story. Because as every Fallout narrator reminds us, war never changes, but people always do. When you stand on a high ridge, watching the sun sink over the wasteland, there's peace in that desolation. The sound of the wind, the faint hum of your Pip-Boy, the radio playing an old song about love and loss, they all blend into something almost beautiful. Fallout's world is tragic, but it's also full of small mercies. A stranger's kindness, a quiet shelter, a light in the dark. These moments make the wasteland feel like home. And perhaps that's what Fallout has always been. Not a warning, not a prophecy, but a mirror. It shows us our fragility, our arrogance, and our endless resilience. The world may crumble, but the human spirit endures, wandering through the ruins, searching for meaning, humming softly along to the old songs of a world that will never return. In the end, every Fallout story circles back to the same truth that destruction and beauty are never far apart. The wasteland may look barren, but it's alive with memory. Every ruin, every vault, every stretch of cracked highway carries the ghosts of what once was. The Fallout universe invites players to wander through those ghosts, to touch the remnants of civilization and feel their warmth even after centuries of silence. The end of the world in Fallout is not an end at all, but a transformation, a new beginning written in ash. The first Fallout game began with a simple vault door sliding open, revealing a world both deadly and full of promise. That single image, the circle of steel parting to reveal light, became the most recognizable symbol of the series. It represents rebirth, the constant cycle of creation, collapse, and rediscovery that defines humanity. From the vault dweller of the 1990s isometric world to the sole survivor of Boston, every protagonist steps through that same door, carrying with them a single unspoken hope that maybe this time things will be different. The people who live in Fallout's world are survivors of every kind. Some cling to the past, rebuilding towns with pieces of forgotten technology. Others reject it, choosing to live freely in the chaos. There are idealists, scavengers, zealots, wanderers, and dreamers. Each one carries a story, stories written not in grand histories, but in notes, holotapes, and worn photographs. Fallout's world is shaped not by kings or generals, but by the quiet persistence of people who refuse to give up. When you meet them, when you help them, hurt them, or simply listen to them, you realize that the wasteland's heart still beats. Many of Fallout's mysteries remain unresolved, and that's part of its allure. No one truly knows who launched the first bomb. No one knows how many vaults remain sealed. No one knows what lies beyond the far edges of the map. The series intentionally leaves these questions unanswered because uncertainty is part of its charm. Fallout has always been less about finding truth and more about learning to live without it. The wasteland doesn't explain itself because it doesn't have to. It simply exists vast, broken, and full of stories waiting to be found. In a strange way, Fallout has become a comfort. Its worlds, though broken, feel familiar. They remind us that endings are never absolute, that laughter and sorrow can coexist, that ruins can still be beautiful. The music, the voices, the soft glow of a Pip-Boy in the dark, these things create a kind of calm that lingers long after you stop playing. Fallout's world, for all its tragedy, feels like coming home to something honest. And maybe that's why we keep returning to it, to walk the cracked highways again, to listen to another old song echo through static, to build another settlement in the dust. Fallout gives us a glimpse of who we might be if everything else were stripped away, flawed, foolish, but endlessly hopeful. Because in the end, the message of Fallout isn't about bombs or war or technology. It's about resilience. It's about the quiet strength of people who rebuild, who laugh in the dark, who choose to live even when the world forgets how. The wasteland isn't a warning, it's a reflection of endurance. And so, when the sun sets over the ruined horizon and the radio fades into static, you realize that the world of Fallout was never truly about destruction at all. It's about finding peace in the rubble, a whisper of warmth in the cold, a spark of hope that refuses to go out. Because even here, amid dust and decay, humanity still hums softly to itself, still dreaming, still singing, still alive.